Welcome to today's deep dive. So imagine someone hands you a glass of water. It looks perfectly clean, but they casually mention there's like a 1% chance it contains a debilitating medieval-sounding disease.
Right, you just wouldn't drink it. You'd leave it on the table.
Exactly. But what if that glass of water was actually your local forest? Because today, our mission is exploring how two curious students from a nature and innovation class, Kesser and Steen, try to survive the great outdoors.
And how they managed to do it without catching any of those medieval diseases.
Yeah, and the, frankly, hilarious DIY methods they use to pull it off. Fans are constantly asking if these outdoor-loving boys are vaccinated because, I mean, the absolute easiest way to prevent nature's risks is to just stay home on an iPad.
But that is definitely not their style. They spend all their free time exploring, though nature is, essentially a giant exposure risk.
Right. And since they absolutely refuse to stay inside, what exactly are they up against out there?
Well, based on the source material, they're facing two major invisible threats: tetanus and ticks.
Oh, tetanus. The text actually has this really funny historical note about that. It says that back in the day, if kids got injured, they were taken to the ER to basically be welded together.
Welded together, yeah.
And tetanus shots were handed out like flies on old cheese.
It paints quite a picture. But I mean, tetanus is serious. It's essentially a passive trap. The bacteria live in soil and dust, just waiting for a cut or a scrape so they can enter the bloodstream.
Which causes severe muscle spasms, right? Lockjaw.
Exactly. But if tetanus is the passive trap waiting in the dirt, the other major threat is actively hunting them: ticks.
And ticks are the ones carrying that 1% risk we talked about. They're basically international travelers harboring bacteria, specifically Borrelia.
Right, which causes Lyme disease.
So if you're Kesser and Steen and you know there's this statistical risk waiting in the brush, how do you manage it without just locking yourself indoors?
Well, they turn to research for a school report. They end up consulting Google and Oma, Grandma.
Alma always knows best.
She does.
Yeah.
And they discover this list of strong-smelling botanicals, things like lemon, eucalyptus, lavender, peppermint, and rosemary. They all repel ticks.
But wait, my immediate thought reading this was, well, why are they bothering with Oma's witch herbs? If I'm going into thick brush, I'm just buying commercial bug spray and calling it a day.
That brings us to a really fascinating legal detail in Denmark, which is where the boys are. Official bug repellents have to be approved by the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay, that makes sense.
But once approved, the state tax on this special poison tax.
Wait, a poison tax?
Yeah, literally a tax on the chemicals.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So do they just bite the bullet and pay the tax, or do they find a loophole to avoid the chemicals entirely?
Oh, they opt for the loophole. They decide to avoid the chemicals and the tax by foraging.
Which leads to a highly aromatic practical experiment. Steen suggests they hit up Aunt Green's garden to score some of her witch herbs.
Right, and she loads them up with these little fabric pouches full of thyme, lavender, sage, and mint.
They just stuff them into their pockets and backpacks to ward off the ticks, hoping not to completely stink up the bus. But I have to ask, does smelling like an Italian restaurant actually do anything biologically to a tick?
It actually does. Ticks don't have eyes, right? They track their hosts by sensing carbon dioxide and human body odor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the strong, volatile oils in plants like peppermint and eucalyptus essentially act as an olfactory smokescreen.
So it jams their radar.
Exactly. It scrambles it, making it incredibly difficult for the tick to lock onto the human scent.
That is brilliant. But it comes with a major comical downside, which the boys discover the hard way. It just pours rain on their way home.
And water reactivates and intensifies dried herbs.
Oh, it does. Because the next day, Kesser is waiting by the bike path, and he gets hit by this massive wave of peppermint before he even sees Steen.
He could literally smell him coming.
Yeah. Steen finally rolls up, just laughing, completely soaked, and his wet backpack smells like a Chinese herbal pharmacy.
And to complete the whole DIY aesthetic, he's wielding this repurposed cleaning spray bottle he swiped from his mom's closet.
Using it as a makeshift repellent dispenser. You really have to admire the ingenuity, though.
You do. They managed to build a non-toxic radar jammer against ticks, even if it turned Steen into a walking wet potpourri.
A very fragrant potpourri. But, it leaves you with a final thought to mull over.
Definitely.
The text jokes that the only true prevention is staying home on an iPad. But considering all this, I mean, the foraging, the grandmother's advice, the rain-soaked mint, does this chaotic trial and error of natural remedies actually connect us more deeply to the very nature we are trying to protect ourselves from?
That's a great point.
Right. Maybe the real risk isn't that 1% chance in the glass of water. Maybe the real risk is never getting out there to get rained on in the first place.